Welcome. So glad to have you joining us this evening. My name is Erin. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the Student Recruitment Officer at the UBC Vancouver campus. I would like to acknowledge the land that UBC has built its Vancouver campus on, which we work, learn, connect, and innovate, is the unceded ancestral and traditional territory of the Musqueam peoples. And before I introduce my colleague with me here today, I just want to mention a few quick pieces to know about. So at the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A and a chat. We're going to leave the chat in case you're having any technical difficulties here today. Either myself, Kyle, or my co-op student, Daye, may help you with questions in the chat if you're having any sort of issues in Zoom. Otherwise, we encourage you to use the Q&A to ask your questions today so that you can see other people's questions. You can upvote those questions, and we'll try and get through as many questions today as possible. We're going to start with a very quick presentation to get through in the next 20 minutes or so, and then we will jump into the rest of the time as questions. So we do have a couple of current students here today. You'll hear from them at the end, but right now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Kyle.
Thanks so much, Erin. Yes, we do have two current UBC engineering students eager to answer all your questions. So please stick around for the end of that presentation. My name is Kyle Watson. I'm an engineering advisor at UBC's Okanagan campus. My pronouns are he, him, and I would like to acknowledge that UBC Okanagan is situated on the territory of the Syilx Okanagan Nation and their peoples. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners and caretakers of the lands that you are joining us from today. And again, thank you so much for being here with us for this presentation. We're going to jump into some detailed information here. Let's take a closer look at programs offered at UBC. So even if you know other people who work as engineers, you might not know all of the possibilities available for someone who completes an engineering degree. At UBC, our engineering degree is called the Bachelor of Applied Science. In Canada, there's multiple universities that all offer engineering, and sometimes they call it a Bachelor of Science in Engineering or a Bachelor of Engineering. The biggest thing to keep in mind is you want to make sure that program is accredited, and at UBC, you don't have to worry about that. All 14 programs on the Vancouver campus and all 5 on the Okanagan campus are all accredited, which means you will be able to apply for your engineering training license and eventually move on to apply for professional engineering license from there. So super cool about that. At UBC, we're one faculty. It's one degree, 2 great campuses to choose from. On your application, you do get 2 choices. And at UBC, we've got our Point Grey campus, which is located in Vancouver, not too far from downtown. And we also have the Okanagan campus, which is located in the interior of British Columbia, in a city called Kelowna. It's about a 4.5-hour drive from Vancouver or a 1-hour flight. And yeah, they each have their own unique student experiences in terms of campus life or off-campus life, but all the academics are consistent on both. And so when you start your Bachelor of Applied Science degree, your engineering degree at UBC, all engineering students complete what's called the foundational first year. And so we focus on chemistry, physics, and math. We introduce some design concepts for engineering, but that first year foundation program is essential for your success, not only in our programs, depending on what you decide to major in moving on, but life after that as a professional engineer. So on the Okanagan campus, I mentioned there are 5 programs or majors, or we also like to refer them sometimes as specializations. Currently, we have students in civil engineering, electrical engineering, manufacturing engineering, and mechanical engineering on the Okanagan campus. We're a smaller campus, and so we have the luxury of not having any caps in those programs. New for next year, starting this September, we have computer engineering coming to the Okanagan campus. We are super excited about this, but again, this only affects students starting second year in September after you've completed the first year foundation. We may see a bit of a limit on that first cohort, depending on how many students are interested, but our intention is to not have any caps moving forward in all 5 programs. On the Okanagan campus, we also offer options where students can specialize in, say, aerospace, biomedical engineering, maybe environmental engineering. There's also mechatronics and resilient infrastructure management as well. On the Vancouver campus, we have those same 5 programs offered, plus 9 more. And on the Vancouver campus, those Vancouver engineering students will enter what's called the second year placement process. So if you've completed enough credits from first year, you can rank all of your preferred specializations or programs in order, and you can learn more about all that process as you're going through first year. But again, at UBC in engineering, our intention for first year is to start to build that toolkit to ensure your success moving forward, regardless of which major specialization or program you end up pursuing. I'm going to pass it back over to Erin from here to chat a bit more about admissions.
Perfect. Thanks, Kyle. So now that you all know a little bit more about both of our campuses, we're going to talk about what you need to get into UBC. So I'm just going to quickly recap some pieces about applying. Maybe some of you haven't submitted your application yet, or maybe you already have, and these are just some reminders of kind of deadlines and dates to be aware of. So the deadline to apply to be considered for a first round offer of admission and to be eligible for most of our scholarships is December 1st. I highly recommend that you plan to apply by December 1st, because even if you aren't admissible for a first round offer of admission, you'll still be considered in the pool of everyone else that applied by that final January 15th deadline. I'd highly recommend applying as early as possible. When you apply, we're going to ask for all of your information and academic history, but you don't need to have any of those final grades available at the time of your application. So you can start that application, you can apply now, and then we're going to let you know when you need to provide us with all of those pieces of details. And if you are a BC student or an Ontario student, you're actually going to provide us with your personal information that we can actually pull those transcripts for you. So the majority of students that apply directly or that apply to UBC engineering are going to be applying directly from high school to either campus. However, I do want to quickly mention that there are a few other admission routes that you may not be familiar with. So I'm going to touch on those quickly, and then you can definitely find out more information about all of these pieces on our website, or you can ask questions about them as well. So if you are an Indigenous student, we do encourage you to self-identify on the application. There are a few different pieces that will provide additional supports and resources to you, including UBC's Aboriginal admission policy. And then there is also an option for the Indigenous transfer partnership with Langara, which is similar to our engineering transfer program, which is one of our engineering transfer, university transfer routes that you can do if you are planning to start somewhere else first. We have 9 partner institutions throughout BC where you can start your engineering program, complete that full first year, and then transfer directly into our second year program. So that's also a good backup option if you're not sure if you're going to be competitive for engineering at UBC. Those are some great opportunities to start there, or start at a smaller institution, or have smaller class sizes to start out with. So there's a few different reasons to consider one of those options. We also have Vantage College. So for any international students who aren't quite meeting our English language proficiency requirements, that's also a program where you can start in the engineering program and have some additional time to work on those English language requirements. So those are just a few of the different ways to be admitted to UBC engineering. But today we're specifically probably going to be focusing mostly on direct entry from high school. We're definitely happy to answer any questions that you may have today. So our admission requirements are going to depend on where you're studying and your academic history. You can see the full set of academic requirements for you on our website listed here. You'll find a screen something like this, where you can see at the top there's a tab for Vancouver or Okanagan. You'll select your location that you're studying in, or that you're currently studying in, and then you would select the degree. And so for engineering, as Kyle mentioned, that would be applied science or engineering. Typically, these courses that are required are going to include English, chemistry, physics, and pre-calculus at the grade 12 level. Exactly what those courses are called are going to depend on where you are currently studying, and so you can check out those requirements on the website. Now, it's also important to note that these requirements are more like a checklist, not specifically what admissions will be based off of. Admission for any secondary student will typically be based on your overall average of all of your grade 11 and grade 12 academic courses, your core courses in grade 11 and grade 12 related to English, science, and math, as well as your personal profile. Now, there may be some students, like post-secondary transfer students, who do not require a personal profile. And as long as you are following the application, it's going to tell you exactly what you need to provide to us. So as long as you're just following those steps in the application, which I'm actually going to talk about right now, you should be set. So to start your application, most students are going to apply through Education Planner BC. If you have already attended UBC at some point, you will apply through the Applicant Student Center, which is a little bit different than what you may be used to with the SSC. There's a new change this year, but for most students, you're going to be applying through Education Planner BC. Now, if you're not sure where you should be applying, start with going to you.ubc.ca, click on the Apply Here button, and it's going to tell you based on what student you are, where you should start your application. And so it's very easy to go through that way. Now, our biggest pieces of advice are to start early and take your time. Let the online application guide you. Tell us your full academic history. So if you've done AP or IB, as well as your high school courses, tell us all of those pieces. Be accurate, use an email address that you check frequently, and then note down your UBC student number that you'll receive. When you're actually going through your application on Education Planner BC, you'll first complete your common applicant profile. Once you're done that, then you'll be able to actually select the institution that you're applying to. You would just hit the Start Applying button, and then you'll be able to select UBC. Once you start filling out UBC's application, you'll get to this part, which is going to ask you for your first program choice and your second program choice. So on the application, you can actually select two different choices, and it could mean choosing the Bachelor of Applied Science, which is, again, the degree name for UBC engineering at both campuses. Or you could select a second program like arts or science at the same campus as your first choice. Now, I do encourage you to carefully consider which program you prefer, as your first choice program will always be assessed first, and your second choice will only be considered if you're not eligible for your first choice program. After this piece, you're going to continue through the rest of your application, which is typically, again, for secondary students, going to require a personal profile and ask you for all sorts of different information about you as well. Once you do submit that application, be sure to keep an eye on your email, as UBC admissions will tell you what else you need to submit for us and the deadline to submit it. If you're sending any official transcripts to UBC, you should be requesting that your official transcripts are sent directly to UBC, and you shouldn't typically be the ones sending those to us. Most students are going to meet the English language competency if you've been studying in Canada for a full 4 years of full-time study. But if you are maybe new to Canada or recently started in high school, then you may need to provide proof of English language competency by February 15th. There are several ways to provide this. You can see that link at the bottom of the screen in order how to do that. And there will be more information that you'll be sent if that is a requirement that you need to meet based on submitting your application. Again, UBC will follow up with you and tell you to do that and how to do it and all those sorts of pieces for you to look into further. All right. So jumping into a little bit about what exactly is your degree going to cost you and how are you going to pay for it? So let's start off first with some of the ways that you can pay for your degree. And one of the main reasons that we encourage applications by December 1st is so that you can be considered for scholarships. There are many merit-based awards that you can be considered for as long as you apply by December 1st. And on your application, there will be a spot that says, do you want to be considered for these awards? As long as you're indicating that you would like to be considered, then you will be. For students in need of financial assistance, we also encourage you to submit the application to be considered for the Centennial Scholars Entrance Award. There is also the Beyond Tomorrow Scholars Award for Black Canadian students. And we also have an engineering-specific award for Indigenous students that any Indigenous students that apply will get an email about filling out that application a little bit later on in the year. Scholarship decisions are typically made in mid-March to the end of April, which is around the same time that you would expect to receive an offer of admission. We also encourage you to apply to external scholarships. So great keywords to search are things like engineering, STEM, tech. We have any young women attending today searching for women in engineering, women in STEM, women in tech. Those are some great keywords that you'll find lots of external scholarships for our applicants. I try and send out emails about some of those scholarships for you to apply to throughout the spring when they become available, but definitely something for you to look into now and see what those deadlines typically are. Now, many of our students may also support their tuition by working as a work-learn student, which allows part-time work in a professional setting or in a research lab. We also have the co-op program, which we'll talk about really quickly, which is something you can go into in your later years and is also an option to gain paid work experience in engineering. So what exactly is this going to cost you? Well, if you're a domestic student in Canada, so a Canadian student or a permanent resident student, you're going to be looking at these fees here. As one of the top engineering programs in Canada, UBC does have very affordable tuition for our domestic students, especially when you're comparing to other Canadian institutions. The tuition and student fees are going to be the same no matter what province you're currently studying in as well. And again, you can see a breakdown of what some of those fees look like here. To see more specifics for your situation exactly, I highly encourage you to check out our cost calculator. You can put in lots of different information. You can even put in information if your parents have a registered education savings plan for you. You can indicate how much money they have in there to help you out. If you know you're getting scholarship money, you can put that in, and it's going to kind of help you figure out all of your costs for first year. It's also going to provide you some suggestions for additional money like a laptop or spending money or a cell phone. So that cost calculator is a really great option, but this is a really quick snapshot here of what you can expect for tuition and student fees, as well as if you plan to live in residence. I'm going to pass it back to Kyle to quickly go through a few pieces kind of about the student experience that you have to look forward to. And then we'll soon get to our current students who will introduce themselves and then all of your great questions coming in.
Thank you so much, Erin. There are some great questions coming in. Feel free to be submitting. If you see questions already submitted that you like, hit the like button to upvote and increase the chances of that question getting answered a bit sooner. We are so excited to see that you are interested in UBC engineering. Our degree experience really does have so much for you to look forward to. We foster community. It's something we're very proud of on both campuses. And right from the time you enter your UBC engineering degree, you'll have support systems like our first year orientations and have the opportunity to get involved in many different ways, such as clubs is a great way to connect with your peers and blow off some steam outside the classroom. Design teams and engineering clubs are also super popular on both campuses, and outside of engineering, there are many, many clubs on each campus. I think we're upwards of a count of around 400 clubs per campus. And yeah, great way to meet new friends and build that sense of community. Later on in your degree, you can also choose your own adventure, customize your studies, so to speak. You can pursue a minor, which would be a secondary area of study outside of engineering. This is not a requirement, but definitely an option available to you if you're interested. You also have the opportunity to gain paid work experience. Like Erin previously mentioned, you can apply to our Applied Science co-op program, or maybe you can get a work study position on campus and help supplement the cost of living as a student in BC. You may also consider going abroad, take some engineering courses in a different country that count towards your degree. Maybe you get involved with research, or maybe you pursue some work studies or some different opportunities throughout that degree, just to choose your own adventure and write your own story at UBC. Something that's really cool about our degree experience on both campuses, right from the get-go, you have design experience introduced into your classwork. And so simulating what that real-world industry experience is like, we're introducing that right away in year one and throughout our degree with some key courses that ultimately lead to our signature course in fourth year, the senior design capstone project, where you and a small cohort of your peers are on a capstone team together. You're paired up with an industry partner to solve real world problems really getting you set for that jump from your bachelor's degree to the real world and that big job you're pursuing from there. A lot of our students do get involved with research. Research is very prevalent at UBC. A lot of our instructors are involved with research, and so too are our students. They develop a passion for that. It's something that you can pursue later on in your degree. Maybe you start with volunteering in a lab and work your way up to a paid position, or maybe you're setting it up on your own through our undergraduate research scholarship opportunities or club opportunities. But research is super cool to get involved with from here. But you don't want to hear about student experience from me. You want to hear from our current students. So I'm going to pass it over to Tyler, who is a current student at UBC Okanagan. Hi, Tyler. Thanks so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Tyler Emberley. I'm a mechanical engineering student, third year at UBCO. I'm also doing an option in aerospace. Some of my favorite things here at UBCO are the engineering community, hands-on learning experiences and projects. Some of them I've got some pictures here. The top right one is a forest firefighting type of project here, and basically it's a weight distribution system that takes weight off your shoulders to your hips. So that one's a cool one there. We've also got lots of fluid flow analysis labs and mechanical engineering labs as well. So those ones we have. Sorry guys, my camera shut off here. Anyways, as I was saying, we're doing a design where we're basically designing a clamp. And that's really cool because we get to do a bunch of things like lathing, milling, using grinders, and yeah. So other things that I do is intramural soccer. There's lots of sports here at UBCO that we have to offer. So you can do those. There's either non-competitive or competitive leagues. So you can have your hand at either one. Basically, I'll be here to answer any questions specifically about UBCO. So if you have any questions, put it in the Q&A and I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tyler. Also joining us for this presentation is Jane from UBC's Vancouver campus. Hi, Jane. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, everyone. Like Kyle said, I am from the UBC Vancouver campus. Right now, I'm in my 6th year of engineering physics at UBC. So it's normally a 5-year program, and I extended by 1 year. Some of the things I've done during my degree at UBC, I went to Denmark for exchange for 4 months earlier this year. I was in the co-op program, so I've done several co-ops both in Canada and abroad. UBC Vancouver has, I think, over 30 design teams. So I was on UBC Rocket for about 3 years, working on the internal structures for the rocket. And I also TA for several of the physics courses for first year physics at UBC. So feel free to ask me any questions about the student experience on the Vancouver campus, and I'll do my best to answer them.
Perfect. Thanks both for introducing yourselves. And again, just a reminder to add any of the questions that you have to the Q&A. You can also upvote each other's questions, and I'm going to start with the most upvoted questions to start answering those. But do consider what sort of questions you would want to ask a student, because that can sometimes be a little bit more difficult to get a hold of, or how to ask our students questions. So this is your opportunity to chat with 2 of our students. On the screen right now, I have some websites for you to check out. So you.ubc.ca is our general UBC prospective student website. You can see that I have both the Vancouver website and the Okanagan engineering website on here as well. We also have that kind of longer one that ends with ask a question. That is actually another chance for you to chat with current students. So that will give you access to all of our UBC engineering ambassadors. We have ambassadors from both campuses. We have over 30 ambassadors now as part of our program, where you can go to that website and you can start a chat with any of them about any of their student experiences. So they won't be able to answer anything about admissions specifically, but they will be able to tell you about design teams that they're a part of, co-ops, what their courses are like, what it's like eating on campus, what it's like living on campus, any of those sorts of pieces. They'll be happy to start a chat with you. We also have engineering stories. So all of you, I'm sure, on social media, if you want to follow on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, or all of them, I highly encourage you to do so. You can actually follow along with Jane, who is part of this team and talks about what her life is like as an engineering student. But we also have quite a few other students from both campuses that you can follow along with to learn more about what life as an engineering student is like. And yeah, so you're already on social media, may as well follow them as well. And then of course I have our email. So Kyle is going to be an expert at anything related to the Okanagan campus, and I will be able to help with anything related to the Vancouver campus. So feel free to email us with those questions about UBC engineering if we're not able to answer them today. I'll leave this up for just a couple more minutes. If you do want to take a screenshot of that right now, you're welcome to. But as mentioned, we will be recording this and sending this out in the next week or so, so you'll also have access to it there. So we are going to jump into the questions. Kyle and I are both going to help moderate, and we are going to try and get through as many questions as we can in the next little bit. So there's one question that I see is upvoted quite a few times about the personal profile. So it says, when completing the personal profile, the question, what is important to you and why, is very open-ended. What are you looking for there? One of my main activities is competitive sports, but I will already be talking about this in detail under activities, so I don't want to be repetitive. That's a great question, something that we get asked about all the time. I'm going to put in one more plug for engineering stories so that I know that they have a video about things that they put on their personal profiles. You can check that out if you're looking for some options. But Kyle, maybe do you want to mention anything that you think would be important to include for that question?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Aaron. This is a great question, and actually coming in second right now with likes is a question also related to the personal profile and similarly framed between the two. What is engineering looking for? What can I write down that you want to see? And that's the wrong approach to take it. The personal profile is a chance for you to tell your own story and set yourself apart from just all the numbers that show up on the transcripts and potentially all the other personal profiles out there. So you shouldn't be trying to write something down for what you think we want to read or what you think UBC admissions wants to read. And so, yeah, that question can be open-ended. What's important to you? But ask yourself, do some self-reflection. Everyone's going to be able to talk about that leadership that they were involved in, or maybe that activity that they are involved in, but it's your ability to articulate why that activity has shaped you. So if you're involved with sports, how has it molded you personally in terms of your character or ability to compete or time management, or maybe you overcame some adversity and you learned something from that, and that's made you a stronger person today. UBC is looking for how you respond within the personal profile just as much as maybe the details that are in there, but it's a very detailed part of your application. You've spent 4+ years on high school putting in as much effort as you can to get the grades you can achieve. Put an effort in on your personal profile. It's likely going to be read by 2 or 3 trained readers. And so admissions is probably going to spend anywhere from 3 to 10 hours on your own personal profile in reading. So I would say put in 10 hours of work in composing this. Take your time, save it. It's like a Word document. You can come back to it a couple days later and do some reflection, but get out of the thought of, what can I put down based on what engineering wants to see? That's not how you should approach that personal profile. Check out those engineering stories teams. They've got some really cool videos on there, but also on you.ubc.ca's website is a cool video that breaks down what the personal profile is and how it's going to be evaluated by UBC admissions.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle. There's another question that, again, you can find this exact answer on the wowu.ubc.ca page, but it says, I heard the lowest grade will be excluded for the overall admission average. Is this true? So UBC is going to look at your overall academics of grade 11 and grade 12. So that's all of your academic courses in grade 11 and grade 12. And yes, your lowest grade from that can be excluded as long as it's not one of those required courses or one of those core courses related to engineering. And again, those core academic average courses that we're looking for are things related to English, science, and math. So again, that's just one grade though. That's not something that I would get too focused on either, because we're really looking at all of those courses that you've completed. We're looking at your personal profile. We're really looking at kind of your full picture of who you are as a student. So there's lots of different pieces that you can look at. And again, most of that information, including those personal profile questions, are all available on you.ubc.ca. So I'm going to open up this next question to both Jane and Tyler to talk a little bit from their personal experiences. So the question is, if I find that engineering isn't for me, will it be hard to transfer to another program? So I'll say that quickly, that if you are transferring to another program, a lot of your courses are really science-based courses, so there shouldn't be too much of an issue of having those as science credit. But you would still need to meet whatever the transfer average requirement is for any program that you plan to transfer into. So if you have something else in mind, I would definitely check with that faculty to see what that may look like for you. But in terms of the idea of like finding out more about engineering and learning about the programs that you may be interested in, Jane, maybe I'll have you go first. If you can think all the way back to in your first year, thinking about what engineering program you wanted to go into, how did you kind of explore the type of engineering that you wanted to do, and maybe thinking back to all of those sorts of decisions you had to make then?
Yeah, so the first year being general, there's this one course that all engineering students take. It's called like App Sci 101, where basically during the lectures for those courses, every engineering major will have presentations on what their major is like. So you'll get to hear from students and professors for each major, engineering major, and that will help kind of inform your decision on which engineering major to choose for your second year. I have quite a few friends that after their first engineering general year, they went into a program in engineering and then they wanted to transfer to a different engineering program. That is quite doable to transfer within engineering, since a lot of the first year, well, the first year required courses are the same, and a lot of the second year courses can be the same as well. For transferring between faculties, like from engineering to arts, that you'll have to like look into and make sure, like just understand which courses are transferable and which ones aren't. I imagine if you're transferring from engineering to science, for example, it'd be a bit easier because you'd share some math and science requirements. But again, that's something that you'd have to look into. But it's definitely possible if that was something you wanted to do.
So Tyler, if you can think back to what your first year was like in terms of learning about the different programs at the Okanagan campus, maybe you can reflect on, how you chose your program as well, or how you knew that that was a right fit for you.
Yeah, so as Jane was saying, we had that presentation there where each faculty had explained what, they do and just experiences that they've had. So I think that was probably the biggest thing for me. Also, with first year being super general, you have a wide variety of courses within your first year. You're taking, science, math, physics. So if you find that, you're not liking a course too much, or say, for example, you don't like the physics courses, then maybe a different type of approach for you is, and you should go into the science, and maybe biology is something that you'd like instead of those. But there's lots of options, and yeah, you could always talk to these academic advisors and just go about the best plan for you, so you're never alone with it.
Awesome, thank you. All right, the next question I see is a second language a requirement for admission to UBC? Oh, one more just jumped ahead, but I'll answer that one first. So if you are applying to the Vancouver campus as a BC student, you will be required to have a language other than English at the grade 11 level. For the Vancouver campus specifically, again, you can go to wowU.ubc.ca to check out the requirements specific to you and based on where you're studying. There are some caveats around that requirement. So if you entered BC high school after grade 9, I think it is, and that may not be a requirement for you and you need a waiver instead. There's a few different pieces in there, but definitely checking out all of those requirements is what will help you understand what you need for admission. And again, those requirements are just like a checklist for us. So back to another personal profile question. This one's a little bit different, so I will answer this one. The personal profile asks for 5 activities. Should you have no more than 2 types of activities, such as athletics or volunteering, etc.? Kyle, do you want to take this one again?
Yeah, sure. This my memory's going to be a little bit fuzzy here, so I'm going to turn it back over to Aaron just to make sure I'm accurate on it. But I would pay close attention to keywords there. Is it providing a limit of no more than 5 activities, or is it asking for a minimum of 5 activities? But also think outside the box. If you have sports there and volunteering there as well, did you have any different volunteering experiences or varying volunteering experiences? Or are there activities that you're not quite aware of? Do you look after a younger sibling after school? Or do you have some other involvements that maybe aren't necessarily categorized as a traditional activity? Or did you have an adversity where you broke your ankle mountain biking in the summertime and had to rehab and overcome that adversity to get back on track? Like, think outside the box for those there, but I'll turn it back over to Aaron. Do you recall that specific question? Is it a minimum of 5 activities?
Yeah, so it says describe up to 5 activities that you've pursued or accomplishments achieved in one or more of the following areas. So it says club, family, community responsibilities, creative or performing arts, work, employment, athletics, volunteer, service to others, or anything else. So it's up to 5 activities. It does not have to be 5 activities if you don't have 5 activities. But again, like Kyle said, think of things like you may not consider work an activity, but it still is. It's still something that you're doing outside of the classroom. So thinking about any of those pieces that you've been involved in outside of the classroom, whether it's taking care of siblings or whether it's having a responsibility in your household or whether it's working or being parts of different activities or doing different events or things like that. Those are all different things that you're welcome to share about. And it can totally be different types of areas. Maybe you're on 5 different sports teams and that's what you want to talk about. That's okay too. Whatever it is that you think best explains who you are as a person is what I would focus on.
Thanks so much, Aaron. And again, it's up to 5. So if you've got 3 strong ones, you don't have to stretch it out to get to 4. Articulate well on those 3 from there. Lots of likes going through here. This is a great group. Things are jumping around. I zeroed in on a particular question that's now dropped down to 2, but we're still going to go with it. So what would be the main differences between studying at the Okanagan campus and the Vancouver campuses for engineering? We're going to call on Jane and Tyler here, perhaps Tyler first, but keep in mind the Faculty of Applied Science, we're one faculty spread across 2 campuses. And so the academic offerings and experiences are going to be very similar. When you're trying to choose between campuses, consider what's important for you. Is it campus size? Is it city amenities? Is it proximity to home so you can get home to have a home cooked meal and do your laundry? Whatever the case may be that's important for you, that's what you should be considering when you're potentially moving to a new campus for the next 4+ years of your life. Maybe we'll start with Tyler. Tyler, moving from Prince George all the way to the Okanagan. How did you choose the Okanagan campus? What was important to you in making that decision?
Yeah, so for me, being from Prince George, which is a decent sized city, I liked the UBCO campus just because it was a little smaller and the engineering community here is very tight knit. There's lots of people. I was actually very surprised with how quickly I was able to make friends within my program. Within a few weeks, I had a nice group of people that I could constantly go to class with, socialize, stuff like that. Also, I like the class sizes because you get to have more one-on-one time with the professor. Also, it seems like office hours aren't as busy and stuff like that. You just kind of get to connect more with each and every person here at the campus.
Thank you so much, Tyler. How about you, Jane? I believe you're from the Vancouver area. How did you land on the Vancouver campus when making that decision?
Yeah, for me, I live in Vancouver, so it was very natural for me to just go to the Vancouver campus. I live like about an hour commute away, so my entire degree, I've lived at home to save the cost of student housing, and I bus to school an hour every day, and it's actually like very manageable, very manageable. The transportation in Vancouver is great. For me, I've like grown up in like the bigger city of Vancouver, so I am partial to staying in like the bigger city of Vancouver, closer to like the downtown and everything. But also the UBC campus itself in Vancouver is so beautiful. It's probably one of the most pretty spots in all of Vancouver. And the campus itself is kind of like closed off from the rest of the city. So it's not like it's a really super busy environment where you're like next to skyscrapers in downtown. It's still kind of like nice and beautiful and secluded, but immediately, like a half an hour bus out towards the city, you're kind of like in the downtown. So you kind of have like both the rural and the like downtown aspect of living here. So that was, yeah, really great.
Thank you so much, Jane and Tyler, for sharing. This is a big decision for you when you're choosing to apply to different schools or different programs or which campuses you want to go to. If your heart's set on UBC and you're not quite sure which campus, it's a big decision. And when you consider all the time and money spent, it's a huge investment to finish your engineering degree. You may want to do some research ahead of time to see what works best for you. UBC has campus tours. You can go to you.ubc.ca. You can check out if you are able to travel to each campus to take an in-person tour. I would strongly encourage you doing so. If you're not able to, that's okay. There's virtual tours that you can check out and put yourself in the shoes of Jane and Tyler as current students and see which one might be a good fit for you. Aaron, you've got a good question lined up here, ready to go next. I see. How is the workload in engineering courses? Are you able to balance your academics and social life? Did we want to kick that back over to students? Maybe Jane, you can share a bit about your personal experiences in managing the engineering workload.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely like engineering is a tough program, but I think it's also with like the right as you build your habits through first year, it's very possible to also be involved in extracurriculars and also have time for yourself. It definitely takes some getting used to. Like you definitely need to have good strategies and habits. Habit building is really important. But you can still be a very successful student and be involved. I think the majority of like my friends that are in engineering went through their degrees while also being involved in some kind of student design team or club. So it's a very common thing for engineering students to still be involved. And like I said, a lot of us also work with like long commutes to school. The trick is to like use your time efficiently, like take your power nap on the bus or review your notes on the bus. Like you can always squeeze some time out so that you're efficient in your studies.
Thank you so much, Jane. That first year is crucial for building your engineering foundation, but in university, you're really learning how to learn. You're learning how to be a student, and it doesn't stop throughout your years as a university student. Thanks so much for sharing, Jane. Tyler, how did you find your balance in terms of workload and life and juggling all of those exciting things that come along the way?
Yeah, so in first year, I found that I did definitely struggle a bit. It took a lot of getting used to. In my opinion, it was a completely different pace than high school. So basically, I just focused in that first year, different study methods. I found stuff that worked for me. And as I progressed throughout my degree, each year I find that although the course content is getting more difficult, I find that I'm able to manage it way easier. So in the first year, I didn't really do much for curriculars and stuff like that. I wasn't in a club, but second year, I've considered it. I've done lots of other activities, and this year I'm definitely gonna probably take part in stuff because now I just can manage it so much better, and I find that I have more free time.
Thank you so much, Tyler. Yeah, so that first year is really crucial as part of your foundation program. There's a reason why a lot of these opportunities like research and co-op and work study and minors doesn't start till second year. There's a bit of a method to madness there from UBC engineering. There's a question here in the chat for UBC's deadline for acceptance. I'll toss it over to Erin and her expertise.
Perfect. So yeah, a question that we do get quite often. So at the Vancouver campus, the deadline to accept your offer is typically going to be May 1st, and it will usually be June 1st for the Okanagan campus. So a little bit of a difference between both campuses as well. But if Ontario, and I don't know this, I assume that this is true that Ontario is going to be June 1st. I'm not 100% sure on that piece. But how do you navigate choosing and accepting your offer of admission when maybe you haven't heard back from an Ontario institution yet? So it is definitely really important to consider that. I think what I would encourage you to do is to also look at what your total tuition costs would be at both schools, what your living expenses would be. So you may get a scholarship offer for one institution or the other, but it may cover only part of your fees still. So what is the rest of that going to look like is, I think, really important to look into first off. Secondly, it's going to be a matter of deciding where your best fit is. Do you have the Are you able to accept more than one offer of admission? We do have some students who do that. But where do you want to go? Where is your first choice? If UBC is your first choice, then definitely accepting our offer is going to be your best bet. If you wanted to hold out for an institution in Ontario, then that may be your choice. And if you're able to afford to pay to accept your offer of admission at UBC, and wait for the Ontario one, you could do that, or you could put all of your eggs in one basket and wait for the Ontario offer. It's a really hard decision, I know, and it's definitely something that takes a lot of time to think about and know, but you may not have all of your options of all of your scholarships available to you, all of your universities accepting you all at the same time. And unfortunately, throughout Canada and the US and any international schools that you may be applying for, those all could come at different times. And so it's really just trying to make a decision of whatever is going to be best for you. I do understand that it is hard. We will host lots of events throughout the spring as well to help you learn even more about UBC engineering if you do apply. So that'll give you a chance to have a really good idea of which school you are hoping to go to, hopefully. But there's no one answer, unfortunately, for that one. There is another question for our students, which both of you have kind of touched on a little bit, but the question is, what is the engineering community like, and how do you get to connect within that community, whether that's formally or informally? So maybe you want to mention kind of one opportunity that you've had to connect with other engineering students through maybe a networking event, maybe a club that you're a part of, maybe within courses that you've been, or anything like that. Maybe kind of one piece that you think of most often. So Tyler, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, so what comes to mind for me is events like industry nights, and then also club events too. So there's lots of places where you can share the same interests, stuff like that. That's probably the biggest one for me.
Awesome. Jane?
Yeah, for me, I definitely think it was collegia in first year. So for those that don't know, if you're a domestic student, and you're, and not the, I think if you like commute to school, for UBC in your first week, you get sorted into groups called collegia, and you get a hangout space on campus. And the group that you're sorted into are also like students in your faculty. So I was in a group of like 30 engineering students. They were the first people I ever met when I went to UBC, and that's where I made most of my friends from for first year. So everyone going to UBC will be sorted into a group like that.
Awesome. Thanks. The next question is, when do people expect to receive the first round early offers or first round offers of admission? So kind of as a timeline for you to plan ahead for, once you do apply to UBC, you should expect to hear back from UBC within about 6 weeks, confirming that your application, and then also updating you on if there's anything else that you need to submit. Then students who receive a first round offer of admission will be notified by the end of February. So it's still quite a while, even from December 1st. After then, we're going to ask students to provide their transcripts or updated grades by about mid-March. Again, if you're a BC or Ontario student and you've provided those details to us, we'll be able to pull those transcripts. But for other students, you may need to upload marks or self-report marks or things like that. Again, UBC is going to tell you exactly what you need to do. And that will happen in mid-March, and then about mid-March throughout April is when most of our offers of admission are going to go out to students. So hopefully that gives you a sense of the timeline for our high school students. If you are a transfer student, the majority of our offers are going to go out in May and June for transfer students. The next question that I see here is asking about, do Alberta students get a grade boost of any point? So part of admissions is going to consider where you're studying and whether that's throughout Canada, whether that happens to be internationally, whether you've done AP or IB curriculum or anything like that. We're going to take all of that into consideration as part of your application, and we will consider that some curriculums may be more difficult than others, and so that is all kind of accounted for as part of your application. All right. Jane, a question specifically for you that maybe you're already typing an answer to, but I'll get you to answer. So what is the most impactful co-op experience that you've had so far? And I'll answer a little bit about the co-op admission process. So quickly to sum up that piece, for students applying into co-op, you can apply at the start of second or third year. About half of our students between both campuses are participating in the co-op program. Co-op is an office that operates across both of our campuses in engineering. The percent of students that are accepted into co-op each year is going to be around about 85% or so. We do have a co-op session that we did as part of the online open house. So if you go to our online open house website, it's linked on there, or if you go to our YouTube channel, you'll find it on there as well. So you can find out all of the specific details. But what co-op is really looking for admission to the co-op program is going to be that you are ready for a professional setting. And so that you're ready to go into an office and work with a team and things like that. So it's not necessarily a difficult process. There's not a really high grade that they're looking for or anything like that. What can be more competitive though is actually applying into those jobs. So Jane, maybe you can talk about what your most impactful co-op experience you've had so far is, and maybe a little bit about what that job search looks like as well.
For sure, yeah. For me, I would definitely say that first co-op experience was really important and critical to me. It's my first like formal engineering work experience, which also meant that it was like my first chance to see, like I like being an engineering student, but will I like working as an engineer? And that was like the first confirmation for me that, hey, I think I'm on the right career path. So that first one is quite valuable, I feel. It's also kind of the hardest to apply for, I feel, because at that point you probably don't have any other engineering work experience. So that first co-op is kind of like the hardest to look for. But that again, that's where being like in the co-op program helps, because these companies in Vancouver, they know like UBC co-op students are good at what they do. So that like kind of helps if you're in the co-op program. And also in co-op, they have like co-op advisors that will help you do resume review and interview practice. So that was like helpful for me. I did a few sessions while I was looking for that first job.
Thanks for sharing. All right, we are running out of time. We only have a few minutes left to answer your questions today. If you do have any questions after today, you're welcome to still send Kyle and myself an email. I'm just trying to scroll through and see if there are any other questions that we haven't mentioned. A lot of them are questions that we've kind of already considered or answered parts of already. So quickly to answer, so for first round offers of admissions, do we use grade 12 midterm or just grade 11 grades? So UBC is always going to use final grades. So we'll use whatever is available at the time of assessment. For first round offers of admission, that would be whatever you completed during your grade 11 year. That could be some grade 12 level courses during that time, but it wouldn't have been anything that you worked on in grade 12. And then for kind of all of our general offers of admission, we'll do whatever you've worked on in grade 11, and whatever you've completed in kind of that first term of grade 12 is what we're typically assessing your offer of admission on. So just to give you some background there. Kyle, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to scroll through and see if there's any questions that stand out to you to answer quickly.
There are so many good questions in the Q&A here. This is a very active bunch. Great job, everybody. I'll just skim through a few different ones here. So when applying to UBC, you get two choices on your application, and you apply to the degree. You don't apply to the major, let's say. So if you're interested in mechanical engineering, you're applying to the Bachelor of Applied Science, the engineering degree. And if that's your first choice, your second choice could be also the Bachelor of Applied Science on the opposite campus, or maybe it's the Bachelor of Science. Maybe you're interested in biology, let's say, you're not applying to biology, you're just applying to science. So you're choosing the degrees. You can choose the same degree on opposite campuses. You can choose 2 different degrees on the same campus. So make sure you rank those choices in order from there. We also had a question about transfer programs, how those work. Those are really cool to check out on our website, where you can start at a local institution in BC and complete year 1 of UBC engineering, and then pursue transfer to year 2. But lots of details on that one to check out. On campus residence, that also came up. If you're coming direct from high school, there are some first year guaranteed housing deadlines to abide by. Google UBC housing or UBC Okanagan housing to take a closer look at those applications, to make sure you follow those deadlines from there. And then a really good question that came through in the chat that stood out: what advice would you give to your past self during first year of engineering? And I'm going to broaden this out a little bit more. So for Jane and for Tyler, what advice would you give to yourself either in high school when you're considering applying to UBC, or perhaps when you're leading up to your first year at UBC? Jane, let's start with you, please.
Hi, yeah, I would say a good piece of advice that I always try to do and is to like stay curious. Like even like you're not sure what you want to go into, go out and try to like learn more about your different options. Like that's really the way that you're going to make an informed decision. So attending sessions like this, talking to people that have done the programs, that's going to like really like broaden your knowledge of what your options are. And even once you're in engineering in your first year or second year and you think like, oh, I know exactly what I want to do, always stay curious. Like you never know what the different paths and options are. So just try to like learn as much as you can throughout this process.
Thank you so much, Jane. Tyler, how about you? What advice would you give to your past self?
I think a lot of people told me before going into this program was that to stay on top of your courses, just in general, in all of engineering. That's a really good rule to follow. Because as soon as you get behind, as soon as you start skipping classes, that's when things really pile on top of you. And due dates, there's lots of assignment work in this degree. They really pile it onto you. If you're behind on that, suddenly you've got to constantly be sending it on assignments, and then boom, you've got midterm exams, and then those will go poorly, and then it's just a snowball effect. So stay on top of courses, go to class, ask questions, be engaged. And if you find that it's too much, you can always go into a 5-year degree program. And you can always there's always options for you, but make sure you stay on top of it. That's probably the biggest advice I could give myself for first year.
I am going to say thank you for everyone joining us here today. Thank you so much to Jane and Tyler for spending their evening with us to help answer your questions about the student experience. And of course, thank you to Kyle for presenting with me and being here to answer all of these amazing questions from you. So thank you so much, everyone. This is going to be the end of our formal session tonight. And so thank you for everyone joining me, and you are all welcome to log off. And feel free to email, call, or myself if you do think of any other questions after today.